focus here just initially here to kind of draw some clarity around what I think might be some important things to the residents of the Mukwonago Area School District. Our school board is going to issue 3 tax levies, and these tax levies will be finalized in October. Right now, there's a lot of moving parts that we won't have finalized until October 15th, and that's just the timeline of Wisconsin School Finance. But there's going to be 3 levies, and these are tonight are proposed levies that we think are going to be very close to the actual final levies. The 3 tax levies are, the first one is the Fund 10 tax levy, and this is where our school district gets its operating budget from. The school district is going to have a levy authority that's restricted to no more than $9,700 per member or per student, and that $9,700 will be through a combination of state aid and property taxes. The school board will have the opportunity, is that too loud? It's okay? Everyone okay? All right. Is that all right? Can you guys hear me? Okay. The school board will have the opportunity to redirect part of this levy into either Fund 38, which is for non-referendum debts, or into Fund 41, the Capital Expansion Fund. Okay? The second levy that the school board will issue is for Fund 39, which is for referendum debt. The only way the school board can have this authority is to get this through referendum through a vote of all electors within the school district. In April 2016, there was a referendum that was passed for $49.5 million of work at Mukwonago High School. So from there, it is the school board's authority to levy whatever tax is needed in a given year to make the next calendar year's payment. So we'll be looking to levy a tax to pay for the 2020 calendar year debt. And finally, the third levy that the school district will levy is for the Community Service Fund, or Fund 80, and the authority of this fund belongs solely to the school board. We have just 2 school resource officers in this tax levy, and that constitutes the entire levy. And I'll talk about each of these a little bit more as we go through it. So now, as we move forward in tonight's presentation, I'm going to talk about 2 main sources of revenues, which is our equalization aid, that comes from state government, and from property taxes, which comes from MASD residents. After we talk about how we received our main revenues, we'll talk about how we'll spend those revenues through the 2019-20 budget. Okay, so here we go. It's a 3-step process that we're going to go through here initially. The first step we're going to do is calculate state equalization aid. This is money that comes from state government to fund towards our $9,700 per member. The second step is we'll calculate our revenue limit. So we'll take the number of students, multiply it by $9,700, and see what that amount is. And from there, we can back into our property tax number there. State aid plus property tax will equal our revenue limit. So for equalization aid, in the 2018-19 school year, we had $48.3 million in shared costs. Those are costs that state government is willing to share in with us. That will lead to $21.2 million in equalization aid for this year. In other words, for this calculation, we have 4,823 students. That equates to $10,023 of shared costs per pupil. What state government will do is that they'll give us aid in 3 tiers, a primary tier, secondary tier, and a tertiary tier. The primary tier is for the first 1,000 of costs each student has. The secondary tier is for costs beyond 1,000 and up to the secondary cost ceiling, which I'll talk about in just 1 second. And then the tertiary tier is for all costs beyond the secondary cost ceiling. Here in Mukwonago, we get 62% of all of our of the primary costs refunded to us. So for $1,000 in costs last year, we get 62% of those costs returned to us through equalization aid. For the secondary tier, 44% of all costs will get returned to us via equalization aid. And the way that the school finance works is that we are aided negatively at the tertiary level. So for every dollar above the secondary cost ceiling, we lose 19 cents on each one of those dollars. Okay? That secondary cost ceiling is set equal to the 90% average of statewide spending. Okay? I've estimated that number to be $9,823 for this budget here. I think that's going to be very accurate, but we won't know until October 15th. So we've spent $200 above the 90% of the statewide average. It's still a very low number, and you'll see that here in just moments. So the mathematics and primary aid. We get 62% of costs returned to us of the first 1,000, and we multiply that by the number of students we have. At the primary aid level, we get $2.9 million from state government. At the secondary aid level, We get 44% of all costs between $1,000 and $9,823 returned to us. We multiply that by the number of students we have, and we get $18.8 million. At the tertiary aid level, we lose 19 cents out of every dollar, above $9,823. So multiply that by the number of students, and we lose $184,000. And when we add it all up, that equals $21.2 million. So our first step is done. We've estimated our equalization aid from state government. Let's go to the very bottom and do our second step there, and we'll go through the revenue limit calculation. The revenue limit calculation says we take the number of students in our district, we multiply it by $9,700, which is our district's revenue limit. Not every district has a $9,700 revenue limit. Many have some that are in $11,000, $12,000 range. We are at the bottom of the statewide spectrum on that. So we have, for this purpose, we have 4,707 students. We multiply that by $9,700 each, and then we add or minus any adjustments on top of that. The adjustments here, of that $540,000, $350,000 comes from the second question of the April 2016 referendum. The remaining $175,000 comes from the tax from the bill that we get for students who live in our school district boundaries that attend a private voucher school as a part of the Wisconsin Parental Choice Program, which is about 3 or 4 years old out here in Waukesha County. So when we add that additional $540,000, we have a revenue limit of almost $46.2 million, I'll call it. So once we have that piece of the equation figured out, we can back into what our property tax revenue will be. The school board has a tax levying authority of $24.9 million for Fund 10 purposes. So when we look at the math here of that $9,700, 54% of it will come from our district residents, 46% will come from state equalization aid. As you compare us to other school districts, that's fairly close to 50-50. A lot of other school districts might be in the 80-20 range. So we're in a very balanced position here in Mukwonago. What we'll do with these dollars here is we'll take the state equalization aid and we'll put that into Fund 10. And then for the property tax revenue of $24.9 million, the school board will have the responsibility and the authority to redirect that money out of Fund 10 and into Fund 38 if there's a need for short-term debts, or if there's a need to levy any of that money into Fund 41, which is a fund dedicated to maintaining or expanding our buildings. So what this budget here tonight proposes to do is to take $23.755 million and leave that in our classrooms for our operating budget, and then to redirect $1,069,000 into Fund 41 to attack and preserve a rainy day fund. I shouldn't say it like that. To preserve a fund for our buildings needs. We have a 10-year capital plan, and we set money aside to always make sure we have enough money to pay for our roofs, to pay for our boilers, to pay for whatever needs we might have throughout the district. All right, that tax levy there, again, is governed by our $9,700 per member revenue limit. The two additional taxes that the school board will levy is a $3.3 million levy. That's governed by district residents. They approved the school board to have the authority to levy the amount necessary to pay the 20 years of debt that we have after doing our project at Mukwonago High School. And then we have a $130,000 proposed tax levy to fund our 2 school resource officers, one at Mukwonago High School and one at Parkview Middle School. The amount of tax there is governed by the school board members. When we add that all up, we have a $28.2 million tax levy that's being proposed tonight. Historically, if we take a look at that, you can see that our tax levy has gone up and down. A lot of that is a function of how many students attend our schools. When you multiply your revenue limit by the number of kids that you have, as the enrollment goes up or down, so does the tax levy. Relative to last year's tax levy, we are down negative 0.3% or $82,000. So we have been able to expand our budget, our revenue limit by almost $3 million, but we're able to reduce our taxes at the same time. So we're increasing student investment and decreasing taxes at the same time. If we take a look at our historic equalization aid, you can see that from last year we had $19.5 million. This year we are at $21.2. That $1.7 million increase is about a 9% increase, which is very significant. As we look from last year to this year, we increased our revenue limit from $9,400 to $9,700 per member. We were able to take that increased funding and almost solely put that on to state government through Equalization Aid, that we're able to increase our student investment again, but minimizing taxes in the process of doing that. Looking back to last year's mill rate, okay, we were second lowest in Waukesha County at $7.95. This is the rate of taxation per $1,000 of a house's equalized value. This budget proposes a $7.63 mill rate, which would put us at the lowest mark in the county here if all things were held constant. We won't know what this year's mill rates are until middle of October, so we're looking back because that's the most current data that we have. I know this graph is a little hard because we're trying to put 422 school districts on this, but if we take a look back to last year's revenue limit per member, at $9,400, we are the red bar at the bottom. The state biennial budget last year allowed for any district under $9,400 to move up to $9,400. Going into this school year, the biennial budget allows for districts that are underneath $9,700 to move up to $9,700. So while it's a significant increase, we still find ourselves at the bottom or near the bottom out of the 422 districts in Wisconsin. All right, so we've covered taxes, we've covered equalization aid. Those are two of the most significant things in the budget. Now I'm going to shift gears here and talk about how we are going to spend this revenue, and I'll take questions at the end if there are any. On page 19 of this green booklet that we have here is going to be the resolution that the school board is going to look to pass. This is a preliminary budget that's in our hands tonight. We'll look to finalize this at our last meeting in October. This resolution is going to give the school district administration the authority to operate on a budget that assumes the receipts and the revenues that you see there by each fund, along with expending the amounts of money that you see there within each fund. Okay? On your screen now, I've highlighted some of these. I'm just going to talk about quickly on a high-level overview, and then I'll kind of get down into some of the more major funds, with the primary funds being Fund 10, which is our general education fund, and Fund 27, which is our special education fund. Those two funds are the funds that pay for where our kids get taught and where our kids learn. So we're going to focus on those for the most part. I want to talk real quickly about Fund 21. This is a donation fund. Anytime our school district receives money, perhaps from a PTO or a PTG group, a private citizen within the community, those funds are donated to the district and are typically restricted or earmarked for a very specific thing, and we always expend those dollars according to the donor's wishes. We can't always estimate how much we think is going to come in because it's guesswork as to how much we'll receive in donations, but historically speaking, we can expect to receive somewhere in the $115,000 range for receipts, and then we'll expend all that money accordingly as it comes in. Going down to Fund 46, that's my next highlighted fund there. Fund 46 and any of the funds that are in the 40 series, 41, 46, and 49, all those funds are funds that are dedicated with money towards buildings, expanding those buildings, maintaining those buildings. Fund 46 is the long-term improvement fund. What we have here is $3.2 million as of July 1st. We have $60,000 in receipts, and that's the anticipated amount of interest income that this money will have. We don't have any expenditures coming out. This fund was started 5 years ago, and according to state law, we are unable to spend that money until 5 years passes. On October 27th of next month, the 5-year anniversary will come, where the money that's in that account will be available for the school board to use towards purposes of maintaining or expanding buildings there. That money, that fund, everything in Fund 46, the school district has, in years past, the most recent 2 years, has taken any surplus that was remaining at the end of the year and transferred it to this fund. And in the process has increased equalization aid, which we just got done talking about, which therefore decreases taxes. So really it's a win-win when we're able to save money for important building projects while decreasing taxes at the same time. Fund 49 is our referendum fund. When we passed the referendum in April 2016, we received $49.5 million in proceeds from bond investors, and we put all that money in this account. As of July 1st, there was $2.1 million still remaining in there. We will expend all that money by March 6th. By state law, we have 3 years from the date of receiving that money to expend that money, and we will do so. Fund 50 is our food service fund. We have a break-even budget proposed with $2.2 million in revenue and $2.2 million in expenditures. We have $626,000 in fund balance there to start the year, and that's the way we anticipate ending the year as well. Any fund in the 60s or the 70s series is a fund that we are the fiduciary for, where we hold this money but expend this money according to others' wishes. So in this case, Fund 60 is the Student Activity Fund. Those are funds that are raised by student groups, sometimes athletics, sometimes something activities-based, overseas trip perhaps. As those dollars are fundraised, we hold those in safekeeping with the district's accounts, but we don't expend that money until the student officers who raise that money decide how they want to spend it. Typically speaking, there's about $1 million of raised money that comes in, and that money will also be expended as it's raised. Fund 72 is our student scholarship fund. We have $155,000 in fund balance there to start the year. We have about $16,500 in anticipated donations that we'll get, and we have $20,000 earmarked for scholarships at the end of the school year coming out. Okay, so that's all I have for those funds right now. I'm going to move on to the remaining funds there. And like I said, I'm going to give special attention to Fund 10 and Fund 27, as those are the funds where our students are educated. And those are clearly the biggest funds in terms of dollars. All right. The notable revenues for Fund 10. We already talked extensively here at the beginning of this presentation about property taxes and equalization aid. Those two sources of income define 85% of our budget. So those are the most important pieces of the budget, and that's why we spent so much time talking about them. The other 15% of the budget here, it comes from what you can see on the screen. Every student that open enrolls into McGuanago from another school district brings $7,700 with them. That equates to $3.9 million. We have three sources of state government aid. We have categorical aids known as per pupil categorical aids, and the bottom two, which are library categorical aids and transportation categorical aids. Along with the student fees, which is paid by McGuanago parents, those are our top 7 revenues, which makes up about a $56 million budget there. The notes on Fund 10 expenditures, there's much greater detail here on Fund 10 here if you look on page 21 and 22 of the green budget booklet. All in all, the revenues for Fund 10 are $54.6 million. The expenditures are $53.6 million, which means at this current time, this proposed budget has a $1 million surplus. The reason for the surplus is that we have certain needs in our district that our administration is working towards identifying so we can expend this money and get it right to help our students move forward. We also have a looming situation to the west of us in the Palmyra Eagle Area School District, which I'm going to advise that our school board does end the year and bank some surplus because there are going to be some unknown elements and things that are out of our control that we have to plan and be prepared for. In terms of salaries, this budget has a 1.22% increase. Some of that constitutes raises for returning support staff members and teachers and administrators. We've also grown by just over 10 FTE in terms of teachers, which is a good thing. We're spending our money in the classrooms where the kids are. We've also increased our employee benefits budget there that you can see on page 22 by 1%. So a modest increase. We are down $2.2 million in terms of employee benefits spending if you compare us to where we were at in the 2010-11 school year. So we still have significant savings from that time. We have a $250,000 transfer on the books in this budget that is dedicated to go to Fund 73, which is our employee benefit trust fund that we earmark money to pay for future liabilities. And we pre-fund those liabilities rather than waiting for those liabilities to come due. Our health insurance is up $500,000. Some of that is due to a 5% increase that the board agreed to. Some of that is in addition to the new FTE that we've added onto our staff. The projected fund balance for this budget at the end of the 1920 school year is $29.4. If we allocate the surplus of $1 million, we will have an ending fund balance of 26%. okay? Again, there are some issues that are happening in other school districts with the dissolution where if we are above our projected fund balance, I think it makes great sense for the school board to consider doing that, even if it means that the fund balance is beyond the high end, the 25% that's listed in the policy. In terms of operational revenues, you can see the pie chart of the dollars that fund Fund 10 and Fund 27. 47%, excuse me, of all dollars comes from Wisconsin state government. 43% comes from our taxpayers and our residents here in Mukwonago. 7% of our budget, almost $4 million, comes from the kids who choose to come to Mukwonago, and that's a significant piece of revenue right there. Anything that would change in state law in terms of how open enrollment is allowed or not allowed or funded would cause us to have to change our financial model here. That's significant revenue there. We get about $1.4 million from the federal government. $1 million of that comes from IDEA funding, which is funding dedicated towards kids in special education programs. And for the most part, that is how the operational revenues look. In terms of operational expenses, where our teachers are paid from, and all of our employees are paid from, between salary and benefits, that represents 74% of our budget. In school district finance circles, you'll hear that the recommended range is to be between 70 and 75%. Anything less or more than that, and you might find yourself not having the best budget, or you might have looming problems if you're on the high end of that. So you want to stay balanced, and we certainly are right now. Purchase services represents 19% of our expenditures, or $10.5 million. The purchase services that are on the top end of this list are bus transportation that we get from our partners at Dousman Transport, constitutes a majority of this money, and also in working with our substitute teacher provider, Teachers on Call. Those are services that we purchase as well, and those are some of the major services that we purchase. Our non-capital objects represents $2.4 million, or 4% of the budget. Those are going to be your basic supplies or any equipment that's underneath $5,000 per an item. Our capital objects are those expensive pieces that are over $5,000 on an individual basis. So sometimes that's going to be technology or new equipment for our buildings and grounds departments. We have 1% of the budget dedicated towards insurance for liability insurance, workers' comp insurance, and then we have another $90,000 dedicated to other expenses. To talk about the other funds here real quickly, Fund 27 is our special education budget. All dollars spent on special education purposes are coded here so we can track how much we are spending on special education purposes. The proposed budget here is increased from the previous year's budget by $180,000. This is due in part to adding a new guidance counselor at the K-6 level, as well as adding an additional special education teacher at the K-6 level. Fund 38 is our short-term debt or non-referendum debt. We have enough fund balance in this fund that we do not need to redirect any of the $9,700 per member revenue limit into this fund. There's enough fund balance set aside there. We will pay this off entirely at the end of next school year in 2021, and Fund 38 debt will be no longer. Fund 39 is our long-term debt or our referendum debt. The debt schedule that we're currently on right now was designed and approved in 2016. We had projected a certain interest rate in our communications with the community. When we finalized that, we were able to reduce our interest rate significantly. And we reduced $24 million in interest costs throughout the 20 years of our repayments there for our work at Mukwonago High School. This budget proposes using $1 million in fund balance. So we're going to levy $3.3 million, but we're going to make about $4 million in payments. But that's all part of the plan that we've been on now going on 4 years. In Fund 41, our capital expansion fund, again, this money is earmarked to use towards building projects. This proposed budget calls for deficit spending here as we check off significant capital projects. I'll name a couple of those right now. We did about a $500,000 project at Parkview Middle School to give them a new roof this summer. We put in 2 new secure front entryways at Section Elementary School and at Prairie View Elementary. We also did significant interior work in Clarendon and also at Eagleville. So as we look ahead from year to year, we may have a lot of capital projects. Some years we do, some years we don't. As we take a look ahead to next school year in 2021, that'll be a year where we have minimal projects since we're attacking so many of those right now. two more funds here. Fund 73 is our employee trust fund. We had our last study done in this last year, July 1st, 2018. And at that time, we were told we were 100% funded. Any school district would gladly trade positions with us to also being 100% funded. So with our budget, we've allocated these dollars where they need to go so we can pay liabilities when they're due and not have to take them from the classroom when those bills come up. Our cost here will exceed contributions. We've pre-funded this fund in advance, and now as retirees do retire, we pay those folks out, and in theory on the last day when the last retiree who we owe a benefit to shows up, we can pay them, and when we pay that last retiree, there'll be $0 left. So the trend of costs exceeding contributions will slow and stop as our retirees come off the plan. We have a total of $300,000 budgeted to transfer $250,000 from Fund 10, $50,000 from Fund 27, but we'll look to keep that fully funded status throughout the entirety of this fund. And then Fund 80 is our last one. That's our community service fund. Our only cost there are our school resource officers, as I mentioned before. All right. Is there any questions that I can answer for anybody here tonight? Did I do that good of a job that everyone's schooled up here? I hope so. All right. If you have any questions at any point, at any time, please reach out to me. I'll be happy to answer your questions.
Okay, so that completes the budget hearing. We have about one more minute before we can start the annual meeting at 7:30, since that's when it's posted. But in the meantime, I want to thank all of you for coming. This is a record crowd for us. So I don't know what that says about maybe Tom's outstanding budget presentation. Maybe nothing to do in McGuanago. No Brewer game, no Packer game. And none of us want to watch the Bears, so. There are a couple of documents that you may want to grab for this next meeting, the annual meeting, and that's, if you don't already have it, the budget booklet, which also explains the annual meeting process. And then I have a PowerPoint presentation that I'll be sharing. And Laura, if you can hold up the PowerPoint presentation in the back, are there any left? So if you don't have that, you might want to grab that. And maybe not. So actually, Erica, if you don't mind, if I start with a presentation to kick off the annual meeting, maybe we could recognize one of our former board members. So, on behalf of the school board and the school district, and I know you're very excited about this, Todd, but we do want to say thank you for your 12 years of service on the school board, so 4 terms. And so I know a number of you are in your first or second term, so Todd served 12 years. And that is sort of a sentence, isn't it? And so we do want to thank you for your common sense, even-keeled approach, your professionalism, and especially all of the great financial advice that you gave us over those 12 years. We greatly appreciate it, and one of the reasons why we're in such good financial shape in the district is because school board members like Todd. So thank you for your service, Todd. Do you have a speech? No speech today. All right. Thank you, Todd.
Okay,
Then you can take it away.
Call this meeting officially to order. This is the annual meeting of the McGuanago Area School District of Waukesha County in the state of Wisconsin. The formal budget hearing is part of the annual meeting as required by the Wisconsin Code 65.90. This annual meeting was announced in the official school district area newspaper, which is the Waukesha Freeman. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, well, thank you all for coming. Just to quick go over just the qualifications for you to vote this evening. Did everybody grab a blue sheet when they came in? You do need to be a citizen of the United States, 18 years of age or older, a resident of the district for at least 28 days. And the school clerk, it's you, Cherry. Never mind. We don't need one, you're here. So we do, however, need a chairperson to run the rest of this meeting.
I'd like to nominate Todd Clemens.
I would second that.
Nope.
I don't know if it says if you're allowed to reject it.
he can't.
Are there any other nominations? Any other nominations? All right, so by a show of hands, all those in favor of Todd Clemens? I think you got your 2/3, Tom. Todd, come on up.
He gets your chair.
Yeah. You should be in a nicer chair. I should be up here.
Well, then they get in my chair.
All right, welcome everybody, and I think we probably went through the qualifications to vote, which are citizen of the United States, resident of the district for 28 days before any election, and if a person is challenged for his qualifications to vote, the chairperson shall state the above qualifications necessary to vote for the challenged person. All right. Election of clerk.
Clerk is present.
They don't have to do that.
We have it.
We have
Okay.
Terry, so.
No, we're good. We don't have to have a, since Sherry is here, we're good.
Election of the permanent chairperson.
That's you.
That's you.
Me?
That's, you can move
All
down
right.
to number
Go down to
7.
bottom of page 7, or 4, excuse me, bottom of page 4. We review the minutes next.
Okay, let's review the minutes of the 2018 annual meeting. See pages 7 through 9 that are printed in the booklet. No action is required.
No, we do not have to approve the minutes at an annual meeting. So unless someone has questions, then we can move on.
Treasurer's report, Jill Werner.
Okay, the accounting firm of Hawkins Ash CPAs LLP, Manitowoc, Wisconsin, is in the process of auditing the general purpose financial statements of the McGonigle Area School District as of and for the year ended June 30th, 2019, including its various funds and account groups. Any adjustments required by the auditors for the purpose of forming an opinion on the general purpose financial statements taken as a whole have been or will be discussed with the district and, if necessary, recorded in the district's accounting records. The audit is scheduled to be completed in September. A summary of the district's unaudited receipts and expenditures are presented in the proposed 2019-2020 budget included in this document. The accounts are presented in an outline form. Additional details regarding the district's budgeted receipts and expenditures are available from the Director of Business Services. In addition, copies of the audit report will be on file in the school district office and may be examined by any elector of the district.
Thank you.
Oh, respectfully submitted, Jill Werner, Treasurer.
Thank you, Jill. Superintendent's report.
Having a few technical difficulties
All right.
Is this one?
You ready to go? You need a little bit more time. We can skip through a couple.
No, I think I'm ready.
Okay.
Yeah, but thanks. Does it work, Laura? Can you advance it?
Yeah.
All right, good. So for those of you I have not met, my name is Sean McNulty. I'm the superintendent for the Mugwanago Area School District. And it's
Oh, there it goes.
I have the honor of presenting some information about the district tonight. And as I said, there's a PowerPoint presentation on the screen, and you have the handout in your hands, hopefully. So I will go through this rather quickly. The school board is the school board is very familiar with these things. Really, this presentation is intended for citizens who are not that familiar with the district that might attend our annual meeting. So thanks again for coming this evening. I'm going to start with some very basic information about the district. For those of you who are not familiar with the Mukwonago Area School District, you should be aware that our district is much more than Mukwonago, much more than even the village or the town of Mukwonago. We're 90 square miles in southwest Waukesha County. We have over 30,000 residents living in our district, and we're actually composed of 11 different municipalities. So the villages of Mukwonago, North Prairie, and Big Bend are part of our district, as are the entire towns of Mukwonago and Vernon. But then we also have pieces or parts of the town of Genesee, Ottawa, Eagle, Waukesha, East Troy, and then a tiny slice of the city of Muskego. That's our 90 square mile district. Believe it or not, we're the largest employer in that 90 square miles. We have over 600 employees in the district, and about 340 of those are teachers. Many of our employees are part-time, not our teachers, but other employees are part-time. They might be working in our kitchens, lots of different support staff working as instructional assistants, so lots of different people working for our district. We have 8 schools in our district, 8 high-performing schools with over 5,100 students. That's a different number than what Tom shared in his budget presentation. 4,700 students is what he shared in his budget presentation. That's resident students. Those are students that live inside the district. But as he mentioned, we do have a number of students coming from outside the district via open enrollment that attend our schools. In fact, we have over 400 students coming to Mukwonago from outside the district. 280 of those are coming from the Palmyra Eagle School District. And I will be talking about that a little bit later tonight, about the dissolution process with Palmyra Eagle. Not sure if you're all thinking about hanging out that long, but in the back of your packet there is some information about that process. So 8 high-performing schools, and then I also want to mention that last year we did add an alternative school to Mukwonago High School, and that's been a highly successful program. We have about 18 students attending our alternative school called SOAR. And then I also want to mention our 4K program and our community partners with our 4K, the YMCA, Kids Connection, St. Joe's in Big Bend, Little Lambs, and then also the Vernon Child Development Center. So those are our 4K partners. Now we can go to the next slide. One of the things you'll know, if you don't already know about the Mukwonago Area School District, is that we are a high-performing district, as I mentioned in the last slide. We have outstanding academic achievement, and I'm not going to go through all of these points, but I do want to highlight the fact that on the last Department of Public Instruction Accountability Report Card, which was released last fall, our district was given the rating of significantly exceeds expectations, and that places us in the top 10% of the 420-plus districts in the state of Wisconsin. So we're very proud of that, and you can look at some of the other academic achievements on that page at your leisure. As Tom said, in addition to strong academic achievement, we have a history of fiscal responsibility. We are wise stewards of the taxpayer dollars, and I'm going to show this slide, even though Tom also showed it. It needs to be noted that, as he mentioned, the Mukwonago School District has the lowest revenue limit per revenue limit in the Waukesha County, but not just Waukesha County, also much of southeastern Wisconsin. We're on the far left there, $9,700 per student. That's the amount of money, again, that we can collect via property taxes and state aid per student. And the reason I'm showing that again, not only are we the lowest, I want you to take a look at some of the districts that are collecting more money than us. Palmyra Eagle, for example, collects more money per student than us, and they're dissolving because of financial difficulties. Kettle Moraine and New Berwyn bring in significantly more revenue per student than we do, and if you follow school finance, you know that both of those districts went out for operating referendums asking for more than $5 million a year last year. Both those referenda failed, but nevertheless, I do want you to know that we have a strong history of fiscal responsibility, and we're able to be successful at that $9,700 limit. The next slide shows property taxes, our mill rate. That's the amount of money that you would pay per $1,000 value of your home. And again, Tom pointed out that we're very low there, so low property taxes. High academic achievement and low property taxes. There's something new in this presentation, so now the board can pay attention again. So this year, for the first year, we're dipping our toes into the strategic planning process. And so we have created a plan. It was created by a committee of school board members, staff, parents, and community members. We met 5 times last spring between March and July. We reviewed data, and then we established 4 major areas of focus for the next 3 to 5 years. And then with those areas of focus, and we'll go through those real quickly in a minute, the administrative team has created goals for each area of focus. So later tonight, the school board is going to review this plan in more detail and then hopefully approve it, and that's the work that our schools and district will be doing. It's good work, it's important work, and it's exactly what our schools should be focusing on. So Laura, you can go to the next slide, please. The first area of focus, and I do want to point out that Stephanie Blue, our Director of Student Learning, is here, way in the back, and Stephanie is going to be responsible for this area, but high levels of learning growth for all students, and then our goal statement there that we're going to ensure that all students engage with meaningful learning experiences, demonstrate growth over time to ensure students are ready for college, careers, and future opportunities. And if you take a look at the right-hand side, you can see some of the objectives or goals that we have with measurements. And so, for example, we're going to work on our 3rd grade forward, and I guess that should say ELA scores. We're going to increase from 59.5% in 18-19 to 65% proficiency. So we're going to review that in more detail with our board, as I said, later. The next area of focus is the college and career readiness. And Dustin Lehman is here tonight. He's our college and career readiness coordinator in the district. So he's in the back also. He's the guy that is going to be most responsible for the work done here. I'm not going to talk about this slide because I have more information about our career and technical education program later in the presentation that I want to share with you. And I'm actually going to have Dustin come up and talk a little bit too. Next area of focus is recruiting and retaining high-quality staff. So we want to make sure that we retain our high-quality teachers and other staff members. We want to keep them here. And Susan Minter, our Human Resources Director, is also in the back, and she's going to be working on this goal. And then finally, and this is no surprise to anybody in the room, we need to continue to work on our mental health services. And so we've established objectives and goals in this area also. So that's the major part of our strategic plan, which we'll talk more about in a little bit. We can go to the next slide, Laura, and I'm going to focus on that college and career readiness. Many of you are aware that 2 years ago, in April of 2016, our community voted yes on a referendum that invested $49.5 million into our high school. That was 100,000 square feet of new space and 130,000 square feet of renovated space. If you take a look at the pictures, there up on the top, you can see the Greenwald Family Foundation Performing Arts Center and also our new West Gym. Those 2 spaces were brand new and have obviously received a lot of attention, and rightfully so. But I do want to remind everyone that the improvements that we made in the high school were not just in the arts, not just in the athletics, but also in academics. We've made a huge investment into our academics, and nothing is more representative of that than our CTE program. You can go to the next slide. Career and technology education. So Dustin, if you want to come up, because I'll probably need your help here as we go through some of this data. Our Mugwanago High School and Parkview Middle School career and technology education programs are robust and growing. So when we talk about CTE, we're talking about engineering, auto, culinary, healthcare, business marketing, construction, manufacturing, IT. Anything I'm missing there, Dustin? I think we got them covered. And childcare, yeah, thank you. So we have over 25 staff members, 7 through 12, teaching those courses. And for this year, 1920, in 2019, we have students in 3,592 seats in those classes. 3,592 seats. What kind of increase has that been over the last couple of years, Dustin? A big increase. I'm sorry to put you on the spot on the percentage. 95%, is that in students? I think that's in students, correct? Okay, seats filled. So we've had a tremendous increase in those kids taking those courses. There's a lot of reasons for that. You are well aware that we changed the master schedule. We've added courses at Parkview and the high school. We've added instructors. We have great community involvement, great community partners. But I also want to thank Dustin and make sure to remind you that we wouldn't be making this progress if we didn't have a dedicated college and career readiness coordinator like Dustin. He's done a tremendous job. You can go to the next slide there, Laura. Continuing on, I want to talk a little bit about our commitment to the trades. So we've increased the number of students involved in our building trades course. This year we have 24 kids in that class. Last year we had 8. Is that right? 24 this year. That's the class that builds the house. Our automotive lab is used every hour of every day, the entire year. Our welding 1, 2, and 3 courses. This year in welding 1, we have 85 students. In welding 2, we have 63, and 30 in welding 3. Our goal is a 66% rate retention, Dustin. So the number of kids that take welding 1 and then take welding 2, we're shooting for 66%. Don't know if we hit that this year from last year to this year, but with the more students involved, a better chance we have to do that. That's school for 2022. Woods and construction class. We have 9 sections, 8 periods. So we have actually 2 classes sharing the lab at one time during one period. And believe it or not, we had to turn away 2 sections of freshmen who had registered for intro to construction or intro to woodworking because we didn't have enough staff, enough lab space, enough hours in the day. Culinary, we have 10 sections in our 8 periods. So we have, again, we're sharing that lab, and you've all seen that lab. It's a fantastic space. 120 students registered for those courses that couldn't take them this year. And in business and marketing, we have 88 kids, increase 88 from over last year. So again, our career and technical education is growing. Anything to add to that, Dustin? Okay, good. And then finally, I want to talk about the IT Academy and how we're going to replicate that success. So many of you are aware that we have an IT Academy at Mugwanago High School with about 75 students, again, filling about 338 seats in computer science-related classes. We have 3 strands in our IT Academy: programming and software development, networking and hardware, and then software applications. That's been an outstanding success for us at Mugwanago High School, and now we're going to try to replicate that with a healthcare academy. You're familiar with the addition of the Aurora Clinic here in Mugwanago, but also the expansion of the Pro Health facility, the hospital. We already offer healthcare classes. 415 seats are filled with kids right now, but next year, right, Dustin? Next year we hope to have the healthcare academy up and running. We'll have 2 strands, a 2-year training career strand, and where students would go down the path to become a medical assistant, a surgical technician, or a licensed practical nurse. Is that accurate? Correct. And then the 4-year training program, which would lead to RN, physical therapy, or pre-med. We're going to have 4 teachers working in the healthcare academy for next year. So the same type of success, same type of academy approach that we had with computer science, we want to do that with our healthcare. Couple of goals. Dustin, you want to share those goals for the CTE program? You can explain them better than I can.
Yeah, so our goal, is this?
Yep. Oh, maybe it's not on.
All right. So one of the goals, and this is all by the year 2022, that it would be the incoming freshman class from when we made the renovation, is that all graduates will leave with a authentic work-based learning experience. The more rigorous, the better. However, if you were to look in our pathways catalog, we define a career-based learning experience anywhere from a youth apprenticeship to an internship to a job shadow, anywhere where we're getting students in front of professionals and having those real life conversations so they can make a better choice about what their plans are once they go across our stage at graduation. And then the other goal is going to be 50% of our graduates leaving with an industry recognized certification. So 2018 graduates, there were 68 seniors that graduated with industry recognized certification this last year. 2019, we had 101 students graduate with the industry recognized certification. So by 2022, our goal is that it will be at 50% rate, so right around 200 students.
Does anybody have a question for Dustin, anything about that? So when we say all kids, career and or college ready, we really do mean all kids. So prior to the referendum, we had been doing a fantastic job with our students who are college bound. And you can take a look at one of the earlier slides where we talked about academic achievements and talked about our AP honor roll. So the number of advanced placement courses and the number of kids that were taking those courses and scoring well on the advanced placement test, doing a fantastic job. But we also needed to make improvements for in our programs for those kids who weren't necessarily going to go to a four-year university or college. And that's a big part right here on these last several slides. So thanks to Dustin. I think my last slide for this presentation, as lots of people ask us how we're able to do this, have such high success levels with such a low tax rate and low revenue limit. Our recipe for success is very simple. We have hardworking, talented students, we have an extremely dedicated staff, and we have very supportive parents and community. And Dustin can tell you about many, many partners that we have for our CTE program, but that includes, and we can mention a few, Dustin, but IDC, Empire Level, Lynch, the YMCA, Global Resource, Northbury Lions Club, the Rotary Club. It can go on and on and on. We have fantastic community partners, Citizens Bank, the Ed Foundation. Chip in if I'm missing somebody here, because otherwise
We've seen a lot of
people are going to be up. Yes.
Absolutely.
So we have fantastic community partners. Those programs are not cheap to run. We need to keep up with the equipment and the technology, and those community partners are valuable resources for that. So then the next slides are all about Palmyra Eagle and the dissolution, so that will be during the board meeting. So I'm done. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Sean. Board President's report.
I probably should have gone before you because I would have been a great intro because you just said everything that I have written here. So in order to not waste your time and repeat everything that Sean already said, I just want to thank you all for being here and my time on the board. This is definitely a record while I've been here for the annual meeting, which I greatly appreciate because I think I definitely believe, I think I can speak for the board, that we know that this district thrives and does well because we come together as a community. So we just thank you for your commitment to that and that support. We as a board are just steadily striving, as well as just the administration and the district as a whole, to constantly be looking at our policies and our practices and our goals to be able to continue to strive for excellence and just a really great opportunity and education for all of our students, for our community, for our staff, for everybody. So that is just my thank you to you guys as being part of this process. And I know we have maybe some possible challenges coming down the road, but I'm pretty confident that we as a board and as a district are going to be able to handle those very well.
Thank you, Erica. Post-retirement trust fund report.
All right, thanks, Todd. On page 48, we have a summary, page 48 and 49, I should say. We have a summary of our employee trust fund. Per state law, we talk about this at the annual meeting because we have this trust fund established, so we need a report on the money in and the money out. So on page 48, we have our trust fund account that's with Citizens Bank, and on the flip side, we have a second bank account that's held by BMO Harris as of June 30, 2019. Going to the figures on page 48, you can see that we started the year 7/1/2018 with $5.8 million. $356,000 was deposited, and almost $1.6 million was withdrawn on the expenditures that are listed there, leaving a fund balance of $4.5 million in Fund 73. The average rate of return for this fund was 2.37%. On the flip side there, the BMO Harris account, you can see that there are no expenditures coming out. There was some $293,000 of deposits put onto the beginning fund balance of $2.2 million, which leaves us with $2.5 million as of June 30, 2019. The average rate of return was 2.43%. Okay, likewise, we report on this here per state law. So we have a community service fund established here. You can see at the bottom of page 34, we only have 2 expenditures, and both are school resource officers, as I said before, one at McGuanago High School, one at Parkview Middle School. So we had those initially at $65,000, but we can kind of look back at the most recent year, and we'll true up this tax levy when we get to the end of October here, when we finalize it. No other expenses are embedded in this fund.
Thank you, Tom. Action items, setting of the district levy. Remind me, do we do these separately or together?
So we do them separately, and so then you can read the resolution, then ask for a motion, someone to motion to approve it in a second, and then we'll do a voice vote unless someone wants to request a paper ballot.
Okay. Resolution levying a tax for the district's capital expansion fund. Be it resolved that a tax in the amount of $1,069,220 be levied for the 2019-2020 school year to be deposited in the capital expansion fund to be used solely for the purpose of maintaining McQuantico area school district facilities. Do we have a,
So if you're following along, we're on page 5.
we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Art first, Jeff second. Okay, vote.
So then just raise your hands if you want to say, if you want to ask for those that vote yes.
Okay, raise your hand for yes. I don't know if anybody needs a count. All right, noes. Motion passes. Next resolution, authorizing operational debt service and community service tax levy. Be it resolved that a tax in the amount of $28,276,939 be levied on all property, real and personal, which is taxable under state tax laws within the McQuantico Area School District, counties of Waukesha and Woolworth, state of Wisconsin, for the purpose of financing the operation of the public schools of the school district for the year 2019-2020, pursuant to the budget for this year as presented to the annual meeting. Do I have a motion? And a second.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay. Vote. Raise your hands for yes. Counts. No. Motion passes.
We move to page 6 for board salaries.
Board salaries. It is up to those citizens voting at the annual meeting to determine what board salaries will be for the 2019-2020 year. Currently, board salaries are $3,000, with the board president receiving an additional $500. Note, this amount was established in 2016. You can see page 50 for the summary of the Waukesha County School Board salaries. We have a motion for salaries? Motion.
So do we need to motion to, if you want to keep it the same at 3,000, or if you want to bump it up to 25,000 or something, then
We'll make a motion to keep it the same.
Motion second? Okay. All in favor? Yes? All not in favor? Resolution passes. Other unfinished business? Nothing. New business? Resolution to authorize sale of tangible property. Be it resolved that the School Board of Mukwonago Area School District is hereby authorized during the school year to sell and dispose of any tangible personal property belonging to the school district that is determined by the school board to be no longer needed for school purposes. Do we have a motion?
A motion.
Second, anyone? Second. All in favor? Okay. Any noes? Resolution passes. Next one is a resolution to authorize the school board to set the date for the 2020 annual meeting. Be it resolved that the School Board of Mukwonago Area School District is granted the authority of the electorate to establish the date of the 2020 annual meeting. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion.
Second? Okay, motion second. All in favor, raise your hands. Any objections? Passes.
Just reminder that allows you to set the date for the annual meeting sometime in the next month or two. We'll have that discussion. And the same thing for the one before, it allows us to sell desks that we no longer need or something like that, tangible properties like that.
All right, do we have a motion for adjournment?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
All right, motion obtained. Meeting ended.
Those in favor?
All in favor?
Say aye.
It's aye is good. Thank you, everybody. We greatly
I didn't think I'd
appreciate
get
you
any
showing up
no's on
tonight.
that one.
Do you guys need a 2-minute, 3-minute break? 1-minute break? I was gonna give you 3.
All right, Cam did my job.
Oh,
Thanks, Todd.
thank you, Todd.
Should've known. I thought maybe you guys would've had somebody picked out before I got here.
Thank you, Sean. No problem.
Cool, I appreciate it. All right, Ty, hey, good job, man. See you next year. You're coming back.
There you go.
The job's yours.
Kinda weird to see Mary not as the president.
That's wonderful.
Eric, you can take over. Yeah. Remember it being so fancy?
Just for you. We want that.
Yeah, please.
Still doing the Home Depot thing, or how many hours you working over there? Tired now, or?
I think it's okay as long as you don't.
should make those people talk. They don't even feel like they're needed here. I'm an includer.
How's the season going? How are you guys doing?
I'm 2-1.
Are you still living across the street?
Jeff?
Why do I have?
On my way over here, not that I.
All right,
This
here we
was
are.
kind of, I saw a 6-point.
Now for the fun stuff.
I read on our road, I thought of all with his velvet on, it was really lovely deer. I know you hunt birds, but, I mean,
Hey, Todd, anytime you wanna, like, let me know.
anytime you wanna.
I went like this.
What else?
Not water.
So move down to appointments, resignations, retirement. Do we have big then? I just think we're gonna jump around.
Are these new?
You know? Yeah.
And
They're wireless.
mute 'em? Oh, they are. And the mute button, you really gotta hit it hard to
You
mute.
gotta touch into this part right here. Hello?
Okay. All right, let's call this meeting to order. I don't like these. Would you please join me in a moment of silence? All right, we have already done the Pledge of Allegiance. Cherry, would you do roll call for us, please?
Erica Connor,
Here.
Mary Diemore.
Here.
Joel Frederick. Here. Andy Menke.
Here.
Art Schneider,
Here.
Craig Wirtz,
Present.
Jeff Vogel,
Here.
Jill Warner,
Here.
Jerry Winchowski here.
Okay, this is an open meeting and has been noticed as such. Do we have any citizens' comments today?
Last chance, anyone want to do citizens' comments? No, I guess not.
All right, we will be passing over student rep report presentations today. We'll jump right into consent agenda. We have the approval of board minutes of August 19th, 2019, and approval of voucher numbers 124168 to 124647 in the amount of 3.1 million and change, and receipts for August 2019 totaling 7.4 million and change. Any questions or concerns? Okay, hearing none, they are approved by consent. Personnel committee updates.
All right, there's a number of recommendations from the Personnel Committee when we met a few weeks back. So, Sean, do you want to talk to the team?
Sure, I can. So, first of all, if you take a look at your packet on pages 7 through 13, Susan did a nice job of showing our current retention rate for our teachers and also our retirement rate. And Susan is here tonight. I don't know if anyone has any questions regarding that data, but that's some of the good data that we'll be using to establish our baseline for our strategic plan area of focus on retaining teachers.
The other one was our MHS and PVMH activities and changing those around. Those met with full Personnel Committee approval and recommendation to the full board. The other one was the exploration of a community education director, which Sean and Tom worked on, which also had the recommendation of the full Personnel Committee, and the 2019-2020 teacher compensation, which also had the support and recommendation of the full Personnel Committee.
So some of those are action items tonight, and so we'll talk about the teacher compensation situation in executive session later tonight. The community education director, that's a half-time position. We can talk more about that when it comes to action items, or unless you want to discuss it now.
I don't know, I just have a question, not
Sure.
that. And maybe there's an easy answer, and maybe it doesn't matter. But I'm curious as to on the coaching stipend increase on page 17.
Sure.
The JV cheer coach is currently at 600 and the JV pom is at 1,800. What's the difference here? It just looks large. So is that
So
the
we have
length
to,
of season?
so
or-
again, so if you want to take a look at the report from Andy Trudell regarding MHS and Parkview activities and athletics compensation, that's on pages 15 through 18. And then Erica, you're referring to which page, please?
Well, just on 17. It's
Okay.
just, when you see that 600 number, it
So,
stands out.
Other people.
So on, okay, so tell me where you are.
So just JV cheer, 600, JV poms, 1,800, not a big deal. It just,
Okay, JV Palms, 1,800 is the current salary. You're asking about the discrepancy between the two? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. That's because of the time commitment involved in both.
Hour.
Yep, yeah, the hours. So But if you need more details on that, I can certainly ask Andy to provide an
Those are the
explanation.
factors that we use typically, hours or number of students involved?
I would say both. The number of competitions,
Time spent with the activity itself.
Yeah, the hours. All right.
You wanna just act on it now?
Yeah, we can act on them now if you like.
I'll make a motion then to approve 1, 2, and 3.
Wait a
No,
second.
you're gonna
so
go one at a
Wait,
time.
wait,
I would wait till action, let's wait till we get to action items on the bottom.
Okay.
You can't.
Okay, so is that it for Personnel Committee?
It is.
Okay, Finance and Facilities Committee update. Oh, sorry.
We have the 403B plan document update. Tom?
Yeah.
Okay, so we offer a 403B to all employees of the Mukwonago Area School District. The IRS is mandating that any employer who has a 403B plan must adopt a new plan document that is a pre-approved plan document that's pre-populated by the IRS. So we've gone through the legwork of tailoring this plan document. I mailed this out to all school board members a couple of weeks ago before the Finance Facilities Committee, so you had that in paper. I have the official with me here now. It's 37 pages long. This is essentially just to document our processes that we're already doing and to make sure that we're in compliance with IRS rules.
Okay. And then we went over the 2019-20 enrollment.
Yeah, so taking a look at our snapshot, we won't know our official enrollments for a couple weeks. The third Friday counts took place this previous Friday, but in order to understand how many students live within the Mukwonago Area School District boundaries and attend public schools anywhere, we have to wait to hear back from our neighboring districts about our students that open and roll out to other districts. So there's going to be a 2-week lag as we wait to hear from others. But based on the information that we do have on hand right now, just give me 1 second here while I flip to my memo here. I apologize. We have, in terms of overall enrollment, we are up to 5,102 students, and this is an overall increase of 53 students. The question that I then posed to the committee was, is this growth due to open enrollment or is this due to district resident enrollment? Okay, because that determines a lot of funding scenarios there. So I move on to tell the committee that overall our open enroll in counts are up from 488 last year to 561 this year. That's an increase of 73 students, and of those 73, 50 are from Palmyra Eagle. In terms of open enroll out, last year's, we had 262 students that open enrolled out. As of right now, we're at 231, but we're still waiting to hear back from other school districts before we know what that number truly is. In terms of resident enrollment, it appears that we have a decrease of 42 students. So while overall enrollment is up, that is due to open enroll in students, and that masks the fact that we appear to have resident enrollment that decreased by about 40 students. That decrease of about 40 students may lessen when we learn that there's more 4K students that live in our district that are open enrolling out, and we're just unaware of them at this time. So overall, we're going up in some areas, down in others, but overall we have one of the highest enrollments in our district's history.
Okay, thank you. And then we had the 2019-20 tax levy, which we've already let him discuss for a half hour, so we're not going to do that again.
You don't need anything else on that? You guys good?
Nope,
No, I didn't really.
Oh, Art missed.
I didn't catch it all back there.
no.
Mic away.
All right, so we will move on to, are you done, Mary? Yep, sorry. To action items. We have appointments, resignations, and retirements.
So on page 33,
All right, we have 3 resignations that were late into the school year. Michelle Nimmer, who's a special education teacher at Clarendon Elementary, she's a resignation. Jason Weber, German teacher at the high school, and Jennifer Nellis, fourth grade teacher at Rolling Hills. All liquidation fees, appropriate liquidation fees have been received. And then we're asking for approval for 5 new hires. This includes Danielle Schultz as a German teacher at McGuanago High School. She's coming to us from Elkhorn High School. Holly Bodish, a new Dean of Students at Parkview Middle School, and she's coming to us from West Allis, West Milwaukee, where she was an academic dean. Jennifer Stassi, kindergarten teacher at Clarendon Elementary. That's a 1.0 limited term position, and she was taught 2 years in Green Bay, and she's relocated back to the Waukesha area. Cassandra Arns, who's a third grade teacher, Rolling Hills. That's a limited term position. And she's a new grad from Wisconsin Lutheran. And Laura Fisher, who's a special education teacher at Clarendon Elementary. That's a 1.0 limited term position. And she's been a current sub in our district for 4 years.
I would like to make a motion, we approve.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
I just have a question. So the Rolling Hills changes that we had the last minute, has everything that now been filled?
Mhm.
Okay, with all of this? I think it was, but I just want to confirm.
Correct.
What does limited term mean? What does limited term mean?
Limited term means just for this school year.
1-year contract?
Any other questions? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? No?
And I do want to point out that Holly Bodish is here tonight. So Holly, if you want to stand up. So Holly's our new Dean of Students and also a Big Bend parent in the district. And how many kids, Holly? 2? 2 kids at Big Bend Elementary. So she's
Holly.
been working for us. So we're glad you approved her contract. Otherwise, she'd been working for free. And so
Oh, wait a minute.
thanks for that, Holly.
Congratulations.
To date that?
All right, strategic plan.
Okay, so can we come back to the strategic plan? Right, so I'd like to get to some of these other issues first, and then,
You want to do community education director?
sure, I think we're ready to move forward with that. Does anyone have a question about the community education director concept plan? I do want to note that the Personnel Committee did ask that we look into also expanding into the community recreation programs, and that we would be contacting the various municipalities to see what the status is of their community recreation programs, and that we would also look at other models from surrounding districts on how they're doing that. Would that be accurate, Andy?
Yes, it would.
But we are moving forward, but we plan, with your approval, to move forward with the adult education, community education
Even before?
program.
Into the youth?
Yes, yeah, because our plan would be to,
Before they look into?
Yes, because they're different goals with each one.
right, I think that because we want to make sure that we have more utilization of our facilities in the evening, especially at the high school, the culinary lab, woodworking lab, et cetera, and we'd like to get some adult education classes going in those areas, that we'd like to proceed with that first.
So we would be making a motion for you to move along this process, but we're not exactly approving pay and hours, or is that all part of this vague?
So we have an estimate in there for an adult education half-time position. We talked about that at the Personnel Committee, and then they said, well, maybe we should look at expanding it. But I think right now, we would start to explore a half-time position for the adult education. And if it's not in this memo, it was in the Personnel Committee memo from earlier this month.
Okay.
So under,
What are we motioning is what
For the
she's
community.
asking, and that's what I'm asking.
Okay.
I
Making a
definitely am
motion.
motioning to have a part-time person, but are we motioning just to move ahead with or actually hiring someone?
I would say that we should, if you're comfortable, move ahead with hiring a part-time adult education coordinator.
I'll make that motion.
And I'll
You wanna
second
do
it.
We both motion. I'll give it to Jerry.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other questions or discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? No. Motion
And then at the same time, we'll explore the possibility, and we'll come back, with community recreation programming.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Do you want to go to balloons over McGuanago, or do you want to?
Real quick, I guess I need to know how you want to proceed with that. I don't expect that there's action tonight unless you're ready to do it again. But what kind of information do you want me to bring April back? Do you want, Chief Schmidt, I didn't know what your comfort level is. Do you want to take a look at the policy? I just need a pathway here so I can get back to them because they're starting to plan for next year.
I guess my only question would be, did we have any incidents that we need to address going forward?
No incidents that I'm aware of. Andy's here. None that Andy Wegner is aware of, unless you guys heard something that I did not.
And I'm fine.
Then I'm fine with it.
Move ahead with it.
Yep, keep it going.
Same here.
Okay, so if someone wants to
So
make,
I'd like to make a motion that we
First-
move ahead with this balloons over
I'll second.
McWanago for next year.
We have a motion and a second, and I will say that I would just reiterate, then we need to see that policy come before a particular committee.
which committee would you like it to come? Finance and facilities? I don't think it's student learning, I don't think it's personnel, so,
Finance is fine.
so Tom will bring that to finance next month.
Okay.
Okay.
Finance and facilities, I guess.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? No. Motion carries.
You want to do the 403 right away?
Yeah, sure, all right. So in the packet, there is a resolution. Let me just find it here real quickly. Page 26. We're just looking to adopt the resolution that's listed on page 26.
So page 23 to 26 is the 403B information Tom was referring to.
I'll make the motion to,
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions or discussion?
it's just something we gotta add.
Okay, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. All right, motion carries. Move down into unfinished business. Superintendent's report.
Sure, so I just want to talk about a couple of things. I think I'll do the Palmyra Eagle situation last, because that will take some time. Parkview Middle School and actually the high school, need some guidance. As you know, at high school football games, when our students, our high school students come to the game, they go in a separate entrance, and then some are chosen randomly to have a breathalyzer. You approved that. We've been doing that now for a couple of years. Sometimes we have Parkview Middle School students come through that gate also. Was it your intention to have Parkview Middle School students participate in that breathalyzer? Because if that's the case, then we need to tell the Parkview Middle School parents. Now, some we know are getting breathalyzed now because they come through the same gate. The bigger kid, they look like a high school kid. If they pick the blue chip, then they get breathalyzed. So if you, if that was the intent to have Parkview Middle School, then we need to let the Parkview Middle School parents know.
Send notifications.
I actually don't remember us discussing Parkview when we passed this.
We did.
I'm not necessarily opposed. I just don't ever remember that being part of the conversation, so we kind of need a consensus here.
Yep.
What are you guys thinking? Parkview, yes? Parkview, no?
Parkview, yes.
Yeah?
I say yes, I think it's pretty hard to differentiate, because then you're putting a burden on the people that are going through the gate to start editing who's coming through and who's not, and then that's just one more thing that has to be monitored, which
And
doesn't
they're a
seem to be
student
necessary.
attending a district event, they shouldn't be drinking.
Right,
Bottom
Where are
line.
you?
yeah.
Okay, so it
Keep it
sounds,
simple.
Art, Jerry?
So my question was, do they have to come through? And Sean said only if they're not with their parents.
So I want to make sure that you're okay with that, though. So if they come in with their parents, then their high school kids don't get to come in with their parents. They're still going through the gate with the breathalyzer. But if they come with their parents, are you okay?
But all students had to go through the student checkpoint.
So I think
Well,
it's
I guess that's what I'm saying. Would there be an exception if they come with their parents? So a seventh grade student comes with their mom and dad. Do you want us to separate them and have them go through the?
I say no, because at that point, especially the 7th graders, if they're still coming with their family as a family, I don't think that we can force them to go through that. High school, yes, but middle school, if they're still, because that's when they're first introduced to the process, and I,
I agree with Sherry.
I would agree. That's fine.
Okay, so appropriate for with parents to not go through the gate with high school students.
So any plans to do anything else besides football?
We have not discussed that,
Maybe-
but
Done any-
Oh, what games on?
Oh, the homecoming dance, was nothing done for the homecoming dance?
I don't think so.
let's see who,
I
Band,
thought
band
we were going to start
performances
doing
or
random
did you-
events.
cheerleading
did
events,
Skylar go?
basketball, just thrown out there.
Homecoming?
So, yeah.
Did they do it? Yeah, they did.
At the dance?
Mhm.
At the game they did.
Yeah, my son pulled it at the football game on Friday.
Every time I go through, I get it too. It's like, okay.
That's the plan.
You went to the
Why
dance?
are you going
No, I
through
was
getting
supposed to
chips?
students because they like goofing with me.
I'm talking about the dance though, not the football game.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
But the
Let's
dance
be
they
clear.
did too. And
You went to the dance, huh?
Skylar-
Was it good? Yeah. Did you have fun?
Oh, I wanted to.
Did you dress up? Do you have
So we
So
have,
I guess-
so we have
so-
football games and the dance. Is
homecoming
that-
dance?
Is that what it is?
Yep, but
That's it? That's
If-
all, I mean, I'm just saying, that's all we do?
No, we should be doing random events throughout the year,
Yeah, what
correct?
about varsity basketball games?
we have not done basketball games. I can go back to the high school administration and have that conversation. Excuse me.
Fair is fair.
We should, yeah, obviously,
Okay.
if we have it for football, it should be basketball.
I agree.
Well, it should be for random
All the-
events throughout the year, like the kids should not be, hey, heads up, at
Yeah.
the soccer game, we're gonna be testing, so don't come if you're drunk. It, it should just be random events. And too bad, you're a student, you've signed the waiver, and you're gonna do it.
Okay,
Nice day.
we'll come back and report on that. Okay, I just passed around an updated
Do we have to keep talking?
Mugwanago High School graduation memo. So, as we discussed at the Finance and Facilities meeting, we want to make sure that the board is aware of some things with the graduation ceremony. So first, we have picked a date, and that's June 7. So no matter where the facility, which facility we use, whether it's Miller Park or here at Mugwanago High School or somewhere else, that's the date that we want to promote as graduation for 2020.
So if Miller Park says we can't do it on June 7th, you're saying we're not going to Miller Park, we're gonna be at the high school, and it's not up to the school board.
So I think what you have to remember is that if we want to have it at Miller Park,
We always work it in.
we have to do it when the Brewers are on the road. And with the schedule, I don't think we want to have it before the kids are done with school. So like late May.
No.
And I don't think we want it later in June. I don't know, I'd have to look at the schedule. So maybe they're back on the road again on, let's see, June 7, June 21.
Have we talked to the Brewers yet?
So we have had a number of conversations with the Brewers. It's been somewhat of a frustrating process because now they have said they won't commit to us until March 1st.
I know they don't have to, but did they say why?
They have not said why, but we can assume from past experience that they're looking for a bigger event for that weekend to be held at Miller Park, such as some type of concert.
For what it's worth, they're out of town on the 21st also.
Yeah, that's what I'm guessing, yeah. Usually it's every other weekend kind of thing.
June 7th?
What's that?
They're out on time for the June 7th? Okay.
I would like to see it stay at Miller Park personally, and for the extra tickets, maybe charge an extra $5.
Oh,
You know, it's
$2.
15 instead of 10.
Or it wasn't budget neutral last year, though.
Right,
So,
Like-
and that's why,
Maybe you only give 2 free tickets and charge more for tickets, so it is budget
But
neutral?
that's what, yeah,
Right.
by adjusting the extra tickets, additional, I mean, that's 50% increase, so.
But we don't even know if we can go there, correct, Sean?
So no, we don't know if we can go there. And again, Miller Park won't commit to us until March 1st. That does,
Is there a problem if we wait till March 1st?
I think that puts the high school administration into a tough situation. So for example, if we want to come to McGuanago High School, and let's say we want to go outside, have it on the football field, there will be a lot of planning involved and a lot of work. Let's just say extra bleachers, a better sound system,
Umbrella.
bringing in, those types of legwork that should be done prior to March 1st. So I do think it's important to think about the fact that it is not budget neutral.
So we raise the cost for
That's why we're, yeah.
$1. There's gotta be a way,
Oh, it's, right.
and I would like to see it stay at Miller Park as well.
And if you adjust it, I mean, if it's 50% increase on extra tickets, aside from the ones that we give them, I think I mean, Tom can do the numbers,
I don't even
use
think we need
past
50%.
years, figure out what that would bring us, and we would just adapt. I mean, best example is like last year, I think it was last year, Arrowhead used this football field, it was all umbrellas. Who saw, who experienced, who enjoyed their kids graduating?
So I think that
Nobody.
you have to have a contingency plan. If you do plan an outdoor event, then if there is rain, you either have a rain date. So I think Arrowhead,
Yeah, they
I
did.
thought they do Friday night, and then if it rains, then they hold it on Sunday,
Did not work.
evidently. And then others might say, well, if it's raining, then you bring it inside. So we would bring it into the West Gym then. So if we had it scheduled for a Sunday and was raining on the football field, then we'd come into the West Gym. So I just want to make sure I'm clear on guidance here. You're telling me that we should reduce the number of free tickets. Now, I'm not a big fan of that. I don't know that's going to go over well.
I don't,
I didn't,
I think we were what, 2,000 to 3,000 off at the end of the
700.
day? No, we pad them 4,000, which is what we used to pay at Elmbrook.
So I want to have that conversation too. So what Mary is referring to, when we used to go to Elmbrook Church, the rental fee at Elmbrook was roughly $4,000.
So
Now, so when we went to Miller Park, we compared the price to Miller Park to Elmbrook Church. I think now, though, you should be comparing the price of Miller Park to McGuanago High School. So you should be comparing what does it cost to hold the event at Miller Park, what does it cost to hold the event at McGuanago High School.
We don't have that number for the high school.
In this memo, it says 7,300.
So it would be significantly less, obviously, at McGuanago High School. The cost of Miller Park to rent is $22,000.
I would like to see how we can adjust things to get as close to neutral, budget neutral as we could.
Okay.
I think it's also a service to the people in our district. I mean, we're a full-service industry. These are taxpayers, this is a big, important time. Bring grandma, grandpa, the ADA, everything is able there. The turf, trying to get, there's just so many things that could
I
go
understand.
wrong. And I think that's what we owe to the students of our district and parents.
So as a parent, I completely understand the desire to have more guests, and I'm willing to pay that extra money to have more guests attend at Miller Park. I get that. As an administrator, it's my responsibility to share the cost with you, and the fact that Miller Park rental has been increasing, and it's not budget neutral. What I believe we should do is, if you want to compare apples to apples, if we held it in our new West Gym at Mugwanago High School, we'd probably give each student 4 free tickets. We should probably give every student 4 free tickets at Miller Park as well. And then figure out what the additional ticket cost or price should be to make it budget neutral.
Right.
Last year, we gave out 3 free tickets and then sold about 1,500 extra. So if we give out 4 free tickets this year, that's going to make, it's going to place an onus on us to even sell more tickets to get to budget neutral unless we increase that price. So if you're comfortable increasing the price for the additional tickets, we can do that.
I also see here on 2018, when you took the survey, what the survey was. In 2019, those numbers changed. I don't know farther down the road from having our new facility if people feel differently about it.
So
So are you saying you think there needs to be another survey?
that is one of the questions that I asked
Another
at the end of the
question.
memo.
I'm asking,
They did have to
Sherry.
clearly define it, so that they knew.
That the ticket price was going up.
Right.
And the people that would be paying the extra price for those tickets are the ones that are all going to have absolutely no problem with paying an extra $5 for grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, no problem whatsoever. So if we survey the ones that actually are touching that and able to get us budget neutral, if not more, I mean, $5 extra, 50% increase, you know, you're talking $1. I mean, if we sold 1,500 additional tickets at $5 extra, figure it out. I mean, that's good right there. So, and again, you're asking the people that are actually involved in that.
So just to be clear, when we survey the seniors and we survey the senior parents.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that's what
And
you're
I've
saying.
never, yeah.
Does anybody want a survey of the senior parents and students? Do you feel like it's necessary?
No, I'm getting tired of it.
It's like,
So
have
I
we
totally
ever heard
hear.
anybody not liking?
Yes, this is why it's a discussion. This is how it's come up, is there are parents, senior families, that want to see it back at the high school. Now, that being said, I also know that if they get 4 tickets and they may not be able to get any additional tickets, you have to decide what grandma and grandpa can actually come to graduation. So that's not something that I'm overly excited about doing. So I guess my suggestion would be, and we'll take a consensus, is that we figure out how much it costs to raise the price on these extra tickets. If an informal survey can be done very quickly, I'm not opposed to it, but again, it'd be like advisory. I don't know if it's necessary, because every time we do these, there is a small segment that says, yes, we should be at the high school, and the vast majority says, no, Miller Park is awesome sauce. So I think my feeling is we want to know how much it's going to cost for extra tickets and stick it out and see if we can do Miller Park. Yes?
I don't disagree personally about going to Miller Park. I think the venue lends itself better for a overall experience. I have had people talk to me about,
Yeah.
oh, we built this new gym, and they were under the impression that by doing that, that would be one of the things that would be able to be held.
Well, they
there.
were under the
I
impression
personally
because it
can-
was
I
in the
look at-
referendum.
Well, and I look at people that have a hard time getting upstairs and
Right.
sitting on bleachers for a couple hours, especially if you're older, isn't an easy thing. It's all nice to say, yeah, we want to be in the gym, but if you're, having a hard time sitting in the bleachers, it's much easier to sit in a seat like you do at Miller Park. So I would prefer personally to see it stay at Miller Park, and again, like everyone else says, let's kind of see, okay, if we raise the price, like Art said, to $15 per person, would they pay it? Probably. Would that be enough to get us to a point where we're close to budget neutral? Maybe, unless, of course, we then increase the number of tickets being purchased because we're going to be giving an extra one to everyone. So we got to figure all that out, and we can.
It could be 20.
Like Kurt
Could be 20.
Or
It very well could be $20 a
Mr.
person.
Harthauser figured that out.
So are we all in agreement that you'd rather see what it would cost for those additional tickets and stick at Miller Park?
Yep, yes.
Is there a place that parents that can't afford it can get at least the 4 that they would automatically get?
Well,
Well, yeah, they
everybody
get
would still
free-
get their
4 free
4.
tickets.
They get
Well,
4.
You get 4 free.
Because at high
Was
school.
it 4 this year, or?
Three.
Why'd
It
you
was
say
only
3?
3 this year.
Okay,
But he
and
was saying
he just wants to
Fine, he
raise
wants
it
to
to
increase it.
4.
because they would
Increase it
have
to
4.
4.
This is
$15
my heart. Miller Park is beautiful, and I went to Waukesha South's graduation this year. It was in their gym. It was virtually impossible to see anything because the graduates are on the bottom, you're all on the top. They're in that track, the indoor track. That's where they have it.
The field house?
And it was not at all as nice as it is at Miller Park. However, 4 tickets, if you have a mom and a dad and 2 grandparents on each side, that's 6. And then if you have any siblings, okay? So I know from when my kids were 100 years ago, you would have to ask people for tickets to get tickets because you didn't, I think we maybe got 5 at the time, I don't remember. But anyways, so all I'm saying is as a board, I too, like with Jeff, it's a beautiful facility, but you need to know what it is and at what point people cannot, and unless there's some fun somewhere, be able to have their people come because we're not in a place that they would be able to. So that's all I'm saying as far as that goes. So.
And it could happen that June 7th, they have a concert.
Yeah.
It could very well happen.
And
So
then,
let's-
Well, we can
let's
adjust
keep her moving.
accordingly
But
then.
we can
So,
adjust.
That's the
Have
consensus.
contingency.
All right, I
There
think we
can
have
be
our
other.
consensus.
Sean,
right.
how m-
And
Three,
just,
four.
and I'm hearing no survey.
No,
Survey.
we're done with the surveys.
Sean, how many people does the West Gym hold after each student gets the 4 tickets?
So our West Gym holds 2,000, so the graduates would be on the floor in folding chairs with a stage and other stuff on the gym floor. We probably could maybe put another 200 in chairs on the floor.
Keeping in mind that's 18 inches of butt space.
Yeah, so
And
that
then-
gives each
And
kid
then,
basically one more ticket they can get that they could buy.
so if the thing is that when you put 2,000 people in the gym, and your stage is on the west end or the east end, depending upon, some of those people are gonna be almost behind the stage, so that's why I was erring on the side of caution, saying 4 free tickets for each family.
And that's it.
And then there would be some obstructed view seating, or whatever you want to call it. And then some also on the floor. So we might be able to get everybody 5 free tickets, or 5 tickets, I should say. And then we would have auxiliary viewing in 800 people could sit in the auditorium and watch it on the screen, more comfortable seating.
I think we're sticking to no survey, it sounds
Okay.
like.
Miller Park.
All right, thank you. I got my directions. It's good.
Giving 'em.
I did want to go back. Tom has a memo in the packet tonight about our special retirement. And so I wanted to make sure that we recognize John Haddon, so.
Thanks, Sean. Yeah, so John Haddon did send us his intent to retire letter here, that he'll be retiring at the end of 2018. John has been with us since 1976, I believe, and he's our longest tenured employee. So over 40 years of experience, a wealth of knowledge, a ton of dedication. I just don't think that it's going to be hard to replace a guy like that. To get people to stay in one job for 40 years is tremendous. It's a tip of the cap to Mr. Haddon. He will be missed. And I just want, and typically we don't do this for support staff members, but this is certainly an exception that I'll make here. So I just want to say thanks to John Haddon for all that he's done and his contributions for over 40 years. So thanks, Sean. Actually, if I may, I have one other thing I just want to point out here. I did give this red piece of paper to all of the board members here. This came from, this is a every other month publication for my professional organization, Wisconsin Association of School Business Officials. This is important to people in my line of work and people in Andy Wagner's line of work. We had a team of our B&G folks that went out to New Berlin for a training. And as a part of that training, our people were put into a room where they had to go around and identify safety concerns and see which team could perform the best. And not only did Andy's team, Andy and his 3 teammates that were there perform the best, they actually found things that were unsafe that weren't supposed to be a part of the activity. So
Good job.
I do want to tip my cap also to Andy and his people. They do a great job in terms of getting the professional development in these meaningful areas that ultimately shows up in better schools for all of our kids and our staff members too. So Andy, thank you, and kudos to your staff as well.
Well done.
And then the last item I have for the superintendent's report is the 4th grade at Big Bend. So if you refer to your packet on page 40, we did receive a number of letters. You received them, I received them via email or hard copy from Big Bend parents, I think about a half dozen of them, and expressing concerns about the high class size. And if you remember, and then following the letter is my response to the parents. We sent that letter to them in the mail, and then also on page 43 and 44 is the class size policy for elementary. So right now at Big Bend Elementary, they have 2 sections of 4th grade, and in one class they have 28 students, in the other half they have, in the other class they have 27. If you recall, last year they had 3 sections at 3rd grade, and so because of the class size policy, we actually reduced them to 2 sections. Thus, the concern. So right now at 27 and 28, they do not qualify for an additional teacher. They need to be over 28, so they would have to have 29 and 28. 57 students to qualify for a 3rd teacher. For a half-time teacher, they would need 56 students, 28 and 28. So they're 1 away from that. So my recommendation is that we look at adding instructional assistants. Usually we would not do that, but I do think this is a unique situation because we reduce them from 3 to 2. And so I would take a look at adding instructional assistants into those classrooms.
In each classroom?
1 in each, yes. Not full-time, but we would want them there during math and reading. ELA.
Historically, will there be 28 and 28 by the end of the year? Do you add students during the year?
And there's a very good chance that they would, but there are no guarantees. We do add students throughout the grade year, but it's also a possibility that we could lose students. Someone could move away.
We went through the square foot student, right with Kurt Wiebelhaus, and we went through it all, and the board policy, to me, seems like it's fair. And this could happen in any school, correct?
It does. It is happening in other schools.
And if we set a precedent by whatever, I think we could have this discussion every month.
Yes, we could.
You also included the public school at a glance and highlighted pupil to student ratio. Why?
So I did not include that. Another parent included that. So
What was the question?
In your packet, there's this, and it showed where we apparently had said the pupil to student ratio was 14, 2 to 1, and so I didn't know why that was in there and what it meant.
So that's a document from the Department of Public Instruction, and the parent that wrote the letter on page 40 included that. We did not include that.
But when is it from? Now, or is it inaccurate information?
2018-19.
Okay, so I'm just asking if it's out there, is it accurate information?
What are you asking me is accurate on the,
The pupil to teacher ratio, that's highlighted.
well, it's 14.2 to 1.
Yeah.
So that's when you take all of the
Yeah, how does it compare?
teachers in a building and compare that to all the students. So when you, for example, this is taking reading specialists, interventionists, coaches, they add all of those staff in there and divide by the number of students.
I just wanna,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't
There-
wanna have both.
You won't see classrooms, it would be extremely rare, that had 14 kids in it, in a kindergarten class or a 6th grade class. That just isn't happening.
I have a question. Does board policy dictate instructional assistants, or is that totally an administrative decision?
No, the board policy is, what we've done is offer usually for instructional assistants, for special education instructional assistants, it's driven by an IEP. But for classroom instructional assistants, what we've done is add instructional assistants instead of a half-time teacher, for example. So this would be an exception to board policy.
And
I want to make that clear.
it should go back to learning committee, and they should look at the policy. We shouldn't just make an exception for one class and one grade
That's why
and
I
one
asked it.
building.
What are we setting
because
ourselves up for if we?
this is gonna affect more than just this, and once these parents find out, and they will, we're gonna be looking across the board. So I think it should go to learning committee, and they should look at it.
If nothing else, and it may not be anything that ends up changing, but perhaps it's an impetus to just take a look at the classroom size policy, find out what, if there were to be a change made, what the impact might be to the district, because as you said, if you can't just do one school, it has to be uniform for the district. Otherwise, and I get your point, and I know why you're saying what you're saying, but at the same time, word travels fast, and then all of a sudden there'll be maybe classes over here that'll say, hey, well, we've got, they don't this year, but in the past they've had large class sizes. What about us? And
Well, and I don't even
happen.
think we need to worry about word traveling fast, because we need to do what we need to do, what's best for our students, not based on how quickly parents tell through the grapevine, because that's gonna happen. It's already all over social media. I'm not opposed to the policy going back to learning committee, and we
Yeah,
figure out.
I didn't get out of Mary's comment that she decided one way or the other. She just wants
Yeah,
the
learning
committee
look at
to
it
set up
right, and
the policy, make sure if it adds the flexibility given to the administration or whatever, then that's fine. And we'll end up with the policy at the full board to vote yes or
And
no
it's-
on it anyways.
suggested in the past that policies are some things we should look at periodically, and maybe given the different learning methods and so on, that maybe it's, we may not change anything, but then at least we can say we looked at it and then we decided to stay with where we're at and go with it that way.
So just so I'm clear, you are saying that I should not add instructional assistants to 4th grade at Big Bend?
At this very moment.
Not right now.
Until further review's done on the policy.
And then you want us to take it back to learning committee, and when's
When
the
will
next
that next
learning
meeting
committee?
be?
Next week.
It's actually next
week,
Monday.
Okay,
Next week, Monday.
because I was gonna say, we don't wanna drag it out.
No, we don't. It needs to be addressed
Yeah.
right away, but next.
But then
Monday.
there would not be any possible relief until the 4th Monday in October? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, 'cause then that's gonna go to the board.
Unless, of course, they do add another student, then that would kick in automatically. Actually, so,
Would they need to add two?
2 for a teacher, 1 for an aide.
actually, after, per board policy, after the board meeting in September, we don't add teachers. So we've only added instructional assistants after that point.
Would they be, if they reach the,
Yeah.
While you're at it,
Okay.
change that policy.
Send that policy to learning committee as well. So what you're saying is that if we want relief in there over the next month, we need to decide right now if instructional assistants are okay in there for the next month until we have it completely decided.
So what I'm saying is that past practice and per board policy, after the September board meeting, we have not added teachers.
We can still add 8.
So we have added instructional assistants when class sizes increase throughout the school year.
Would there be a, the learning committee meets
Next Monday?
is there any way that if we were to, at that learning committee, and the decision of that committee were to say, yeah, go ahead?
That's
And
fine.
have
That's
the-
fine if everybody agrees.
But then, could we do that prior, give you that allowance prior to the board meeting?
If you agree to that tonight, you give me that in.
That would require full board approval, though.
Unless
that's what I'm
we-
asking.
And what Sean was starting to say,
But then
unless
I'm
we
with-
give him that
Right,
agreement
then I'm
tonight,
kind
if
of
we
with what
say.
Mary and Craig were saying, you know, then we're gonna be inundated with parents from every elementary school in the district that may be facing this same classroom size.
Well, no, what we're
Well, you're
saying is
making
it's
that
gonna go to
assumption
learning
based
committee,
on
And
the
they're gonna
policy.
decide what.
Well, I understand that, but so.
If the policy doesn't change, or if it does change, I mean, then that scenario doesn't play out. I mean, we'd have to see what happens in learning committee before we can make that assumption. But do we want to give him leeway that based upon learning committee finding that he's able to move forward? Or do we wait a whole nother month?
I have a question. What is learning committee going to expose or help you to make a decision that's different than what we are all hearing here tonight?
Well, it would be, I mean, primarily, we're gonna be looking at that particular policy. And if we
Okay.
feel as though that those numbers in that policy, the limits per grade size, if we think those are still best practice, if those should be changed, if they shouldn't, do we need to specifically say, at this amount, you add an aid?
And it could be a may or shall, you know, with isn't, you know,
And-
suggestion, so it's all the wording.
And it would be, that information would be brought to us as far as what the new best practices are. We don't have it.
I wanted that answer.
How about
It's us
we let the,
making-
on the suggestion of the learning committee, he can move forward. And if you have an opinion or a stake in it, or you think you need to be at that meeting, then your butt should be in the seat. At that meeting. I'm comfortable with that, based on
Yeah.
learning.
So there could be
decide.
some decisions made at that meeting that could affect the entire district, budgetary, teacher-wise.
No, just, well,
Well,
Is that what I'm
technically
hearing?
change
Is that what I'm hearing? If you change the policy, it could affect the whole district. Is that
Oh, yeah.
correct?
It could.
Yep.
Sure.
technically, yes. But since we're on a time limit with our other policy, and we're conflicting with it, so we don't conflict with it,
I have another suggestion that if
I-
everybody's
Go
not
for
comfortable with that one. If we're asking, when we're talking about the Palmyra Eagle thing and how laws are and asking for an exception because it's different, couldn't we as a board make an exception, a one-time exception, that if we decide to change the policy, that we wouldn't have to adhere to the September date, we could just move it for an exception because of a situation to October, which would give everybody a chance to hear what they need to hear, policies need to be changed, and yet we still could add a teacher or what we needed to in October. Maybe that's another way to do it.
We could potentially do that, but that is still a month with no change in the classroom, potentially.
Correct.
I guess we're
I'm
trying to give Sean the flexibility to
I'm okay with
help
either one.
classroom and it, within that month's time that,
well, I think clearly that
That's what
policy that subjects us to the September deadline needs to be changed. I mean, especially if we're getting kids during the school year. I mean, so
Yeah,
we're
it's a
saying like
growing
if a class
district,
goes up to
right.
30, they're just stuck because it's past September?
I think probably in the past that they didn't want to cause the disruption that might come with, you have 3 sections of 6th grade,
Right.
and the kids are accustomed to their teacher, and love their teacher, and then all of a sudden, the board adds another teacher in December,
If we had a
and then
teacher.
you have to pick 10 kids from each of those 3 classes to go into the new teacher's course. I'm guessing that
But that applies to part-time teachers as well. So like if we just bring in a teacher for math and reading, that applies to them as well. We can't bring them in after September?
That's what
You're saying the
that's what we're
policy
thinking.
only.
That's what
says
we're thinking.
Instructional.
I'm not thinking of another.
so I'd have to look, I'm looking at the policy right now.
Okay.
Feel free to discuss something else while I'm reading.
Oh,
No,
no.
we want you to read it out loud.
I'm going to watch.
You can
Stephanie,
still add a
can you bring us all the class sizes of 4th grade
20% later
on Monday?
50% teacher.
Didn't we have it, just get it in that?
Yeah, we just
Report.
got it.
I'm not pulling out my capacity report.
Oh, I hear
And
you.
flip through it.
I know, I'm not either, but
'Cause
I'm
I won't
just saying, so
find it.
the information is there for the
It's-
learning committee to absorb.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you take a look at your policy on page 44 in the second to last paragraph, no full-time teacher. So,
Okay.
Mary, thank you. No full-time elementary teacher will be added after September board meeting for the current school year. If enrollment reaches the threshold to add another full-time teacher after this date, the administration will review the use of instructional aid or a 50% teacher. So my bad.
Okay, so we're good.
Good.
So yes, we need to wait till Monday.
Okay.
And then after Monday, does he have the flexibility?
Based on the,
Policy.
or what the learning committee
So
advised.
we're all agreeing then that if you want input on this decision, you need to come to learning committee on Monday here at, is it 7? 6:37?
7?
Because then following that meeting, marching orders or direction will be given. So if you want input on it, if we all agree to that.
Is there anybody?
Anybody
So-
object to
So
that
is
process?
I mean, is that a special board meeting then? Do we have to designate that if there's
We could do that,
action, or-
if that's your preference.
I would think that'd be the cleanest way to do it.
It would be.
And then if, board members are there or not, it doesn't matter, but it's,
We need to have
and then that'd be an action item.
need to have a quorum.
Right.
Need to have 5.
How many are on the learning? committee?
3.
3.
Okay.
So where are we right now?
Just turning that into a special board meeting in addition to the learning committee
Right,
meeting.
they have a quorum.
So then, yes, then you can make a decision and it'll be, everybody gets a
That'll work.
Voice. That is the cleanest, best way to do it.
There you go. Board meeting right
But
after
then
learning
it
committee.
needs to be the first thing on the agenda, so that
Would
everybody
probably
doesn't
be
have
the
to
only-
sit
It will
2
be just a,
hours.
no, it'll just be a special board meeting.
And it needs to start at 6. I mean, I think we're setting a precedence here that I'm not comfortable with because we're trying to find a way to or move away from board policy. And if it goes to learning committee
No.
next Monday.
What we're doing
No,
here is
we're
we're
not
sending
at
the
all.
policy
Actually
to
sending the
learning
policy.
committee, and
It's-
that is exactly
and
the
making
function of
Exactly.
this
See
board.
if the policy
Right,
should be
and we're
Right.
changing
with-
it. Right, but we're.
We don't know that we're changing it.
Changing anything.
You're operating on
Board-
assumptions that we have not
The
made. So
board's
we are
voting.
sending policy to learning committee on Monday with a special board meeting attached. Okay.
And nothing may change.
Yeah.
And nothing may change,
And we
but a
have-
discussion that
We have special board.
needs to be
meetings
more
all the
in-depth
time.
needs to happen. That's not happening right now because it has to deal with the policy. Not just this particular situation
But it
where we're
was
making
the
this.
situation that made this whole thing
Well, that,
happen.
Just like
Yes,
unusual that
Like
certain
any-
circumstances
Stuff comes
promote
up in
larger
the evening.
changes if they happen at times. And so this is just prompting a discussion about that.
I understand that, but it's prompting the change that came from Sean's recommendation 25 minutes ago.
okay, but can I reel this into the fact that when we had the balloons over McGuanago discussion over the summer, there was a policy about no alcohol on the grounds. And what did multiple people say? We need to be able to make exceptions to board policy.
Right.
So here we're going to take board policy and have it addressed. And we're going to look at it and we're going to either do something or not. We're not making an exception. Even though exceptions, in this last year, we've been able to make a couple that seem to be okay with everybody, but now it's not. So let's just address with policy, okay? So Monday it is.
Yep.
Can we say 6:30 if we're doing special?
Sure.
Cherry,
Let me see.
board, or learning committee, can you be there at 6:30?
Yes, I can be there.
Okay, so can we say 6:30?
At 7?
Yeah, Stephanie, okay.
Well, why don't we do 7?
There is no school that day, everyone.
Oh, yeah.
I
still-
know, why is
I
that?
still have
Why
to
can't
go.
you keep those kids in the buildings?
I think the fact that this discussion is emotional because it's the kids.
Right.
We should have the discussion, no doubt. So it's 6:30 on Monday?
Yep.
Is it open to the public?
Is it,
Yep.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Is it okay because it's been already published, Laura?
Yeah, that's no problem.
No.
We have plenty of,
Yeah.
We have plenty
Yes,
of time.
we have 24 hours.
we can change that.
I'm just saying, but we have time to do that.
We'll repost it, yep. We have plenty of time.
We'll just change that policy, Sherry.
Okay. That one we can't change, that's the state.
That's a state thing.
Just a one-time exception. All right,
All right.
how was that for you?
My light screen.
Sounds good. So now I would recommend on this pleasant note to go into executive session so we can meet Christine.
I make a motion to go into executive session.
Well, second.
Are we going to talk about PEAS?
Are you talking about Palmer Eagle and executive, or out here?
Could we go do the executive session
Yeah.
first so she, well,
So she can go home. Okay,
9
I make a
o'clock.
motion. Do I have a second?
I've
I
been here.
second.
I have a motion and a second. Okay, we'll go into executive session.
Cherry, you
No,
gotta.
yeah.
roll call.
Roll call out, Cherry. My bad.